Hello and thanks for joining us. You're watching Talking Europe on France 24. I'm Luke Brown. Now, wherever in the world you're watching this programme right now, there's a strong possibility you've been experiencing some pressures on your cost of living lately. Since the Russian military invaded Ukraine, prices of everything from gas to grains has gone up, adding to inflation all around the world. Here in Europe, the countries which use the euro currency saw an average 8.1% inflation in May this year. Pressure on prices combined with stuttering economic growth has sparked fears of recession and the resulting problems of lower incomes and unemployment. Those concerns of economic damage could yet come into play regarding the EU's response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine and how far the EU is willing to go with sanctions against Moscow. Now, joining me to debate the path ahead, German MEP Markus Ferber from the centre-right European People's Party and member of the Parliament's Economic and Monetary Affairs Committee, and Greek MEP Stelios Kouloglou from the Left Group and a member of the Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you both very much for joining us today. Mr. Ferber, I'd like to start with you. Germany is, of course, seen by many as the most stable and most important economy in the European Union and the Eurozone. Inflation's still reached almost 8% in May in Germany, 7.9%. Do you see the situation getting any worse? Can you see the end of the tunnel when it comes to inflation?
Unfortunately, I do not see the end of the tunnel because we have some more issues which are have to be taken into account, exploring why we have this high inflation rate. We even had in January 5% before the war, which means we have a problem by itself, and that has to be addressed by European Central Bank. To reduce the money available and to increase the interest rates, and I hope Central Bank is going to do so. And of course we have another issue which is very new experience for politicians as well. We don't have a problem on the demand side, we have a problem on the supply side. And therefore the good old instruments to put additional money in the market and hopefully investing takes place is not addressing the issue. If you have a problem on the supply side, you really have to rethink how you can organize supply chains, which is under pressure, and how you can reorganize that products are more produced in Europe itself and being less dependent from other sources. So that are the main challenges, and therefore I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel, because those things need time to be addressed.
Mr. Kouloglou, the situation in Greece has over the past decade been economically different from that in Germany. Greece perhaps even more fragile when it comes to the potential shocks of the Ukraine conflict and the sanctions against Russia. How concerned are you that with the highest inflation rates in almost 30 years in Greece, that again, Greece itself is going to be really badly hit by the economic situation downturn?
Very badly hit, and the end of the tunnel is the end of the war, I think. Otherwise, I think the situation is going to get worse. Greece really is very badly affected by the war and the crisis. We had an increase of prices even before the start of the war and this barbaric invasion. But we have a bigger problem, and Greece has the second most expensive gasoline price in the European Union and the fifth all over the world, though the salaries are very low compared with Germany and the other members of the European Union, and generally speaking. So the government does not want to take drastic measures. So we're facing a very, very difficult situation.
Mr. Ferber, would you say that the sanctions are having a boomerang effect? Is Europe suffering more from the sanctions that it's imposing on Russia than Russia itself?
Of course, if you look at the developments from the first sanction to the sixth package, we are hurting more and more ourselves as well. And we always have to find a way of sanctions where we hurt Russia tremendously more than ourselves. So in the first rounds, when we had to freeze money from Russia, properties from oligarchs, ships from oligarchs, of course, that did not hurt anyone in Europe. Maybe some harbor authorities, but that's a minor issue. If we speak now about oil, which was in the fifth package, coal in the fifth, oil in the sixth package, and of course the question of gas is coming more and more in the center. We really have to be aware that at the end the sanctions hurt us more than the Russians. And till now, I think we found a good balance, but we have to be aware of this problem. And therefore, we have to use the time which we have at the moment to reorganize our supply chain, especially in the energy demands, because I don't see that the day after the war is finished, we go back to Russia and say, please deliver gas again. We have to rethink, for example, Italy had a lot of gas production in the past, stopped it and could increase it again. The same goes for the Netherlands. We have to rethink with Norway, United Kingdom. And of course, we have to rethink how we can bring more hydrogen to us, how we can improve the renewables inside European Union, because what's happening at the moment in Germany is in contradiction to our Fit for 55 program, that we shut off nuclear power and increase coal burning, which is on the CO2 emissions a nightmare, and therefore I'm really disappointed about the behavior of my government. You address short-term the problems, but you create other problems which are even hurting more, and that is the climate challenge.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Ferber mentioned there the sixth package of sanctions, including those an almost total ban on oil. Do you think, Mr. Kuluglu, that the EU can go further? Is there going to be a seventh or further wave of sanctions, or should Europe start rethinking its strategy, given the impact it's having on the European economy?
I think we have to rethink the strategy of sanctions and interfering in order to stop the war, because there are factors in the game, in the political and military game, they don't want right now for the war to finish. For instance, United States have publicly declared that they want to have to impose a strategic defeat on Russia. That means that the war must continue up to that goal if the Ukrainian government will follow the American recipe, In the meantime, in Europe is very badly affected. Is one of the main losses of the war, and we have this kind of paradox. The more sanctions we impose on Russia, the more the prices of oil are increasing, and the more money Putin is winning. So how we can solve this problem? Putin is winning a lot of money every day by the increase of the oil prices. So what's the result? I don't know.
Well, to talk about some of the solutions, the issue of inflation, which is increasingly important at the moment, the European Central Bank, Mr. Ferber, has already signalled it will raise interest rates in July, again in September. Is that the correct solution, or is that the wrong path?
As I said, the inflation we see for the moment has more sources. For example, one is, of course, the bad ratio to the US dollar. And as we buy gasoline, oil and coal till today, not in euros, but in dollars, we are dependent on these exchange ratios as well. And even that is introducing additional inflation. And on the other hand, if you see how Federal Reserve and Bank of England, for example, have increased their interest rates, ECB is not as independent not to react on those monetary decisions as well. So one part is that, but the other part is, of course, how we can reorganize our energy demand and to be less dependent from Russia. I fully share that problem, and I don't have an answer today because you can't make it like that, and then you have other sources available. And therefore, that needs some time. But honestly, we are hurting the Russian economy tremendously. I think there are some possibilities, especially in techniques, semiconductor devices, chips, things like that, where we could even increase our sanctions, not to deliver anything anymore, not even on the civil world, which will hurt Russia tremendously as well. And on the other hand, really, we have to reorganize our demands. But honestly, if Commission asks that till autumn all the storages for gas have to be more than 80% full, we increase our demand. Sorry, and that is a market reaction. If you increase the demand by lower supply, prices go up. So we should really rethink whether we should follow all these lines in that way, that we increase the prices by ourselves, by our own decisions, and that is even rising inflation additionally. So we should be aware on those effects, which is normal market behavior as well.
Well, and you've spoken in the past about looking for policies that will help reduce the impact on Europeans. What kinds of measures would you suggest to protect European citizens today?
Yeah, of course, we have to take care that people cannot afford anymore to have heated house, warm water, and how even they can do their transport. Yeah, as you spoke about the high gasoline prices in Greece, for example. So therefore, we should find some actions as well. And I'm wondering why Spain and Portugal got a special allowance from the European Commission to make a limit, a maximum limit for gas prices, and not for the rest of the European Union. Therefore, there is space for decisions as well. And we should think on things like that, especially to help the poorer people in Europe.
Okay, one final question, Mr. Kouloglou. We've seen in the past that Greece has been asked to make pretty big sacrifices economically to help the euro currency. Do you feel that nations such as yours are once again being asked to take a greater burden than others during this crisis?
I'm afraid yes, because the rise of the interest rates by the European Bank will also increase how the rates for Greece to repay the debt. The debt in Greece is very, very high. We will have up to now the debt was repaid thanks to the low interest rates. You can have money from the markets, but now it's getting more expensive. And the same goes with other countries with a high debt like Italy. So I think we will have a very, very big problem if we continue like this.
Okay, Mr. Kouloglou, Mr. Ferber, thank you very much for your participation and your responses. And thank you for watching. You're watching France 24's Talking Europe. More news and headlines on France 24 after the break. Do stay tuned.